So today we are starting a series, and it's a series on prosperity. And so what I want to do is I want to invite Wendy Fredrickson to come up, and Wendy's going to share some things with us. I think it's awesome when people in the midst of our congregation can share some of their experiences about their journey with, and in particular what we're focusing on is financial prosperity. So I'm going to give this to you, Wendy, and thank you for being here today. Thank you for your willingness, and when I asked her, she just said sure. So I'm excited. Thank you.
We love these principles, and they work.
I know you do.
Love to share them with
Yay,
others.
yay. So tell me first, can you kind of tell me like what some of your beliefs were before really getting into these principles?
Well, in the area of prosperity, I was raised with a wealthy person in my life who didn't demonstrate anything good, and so basically wealth made people evil. Wealth was bad. It was like the tool of the devil, a way to snag you. So I was afraid of wealth. Yeah. And the other thing that I was kind of raised was it's like there was this pile of abundance, and that was it. And the idea was you had to try to share that pile out evenly. And so most of my journey was trying to figure out how to share that pile out between everybody so we all got some. And I also believe, like in St. Francis of Assisi, the best thing was to have nothing and give to the poor, until I thought, if the best thing you can be is to have nothing, why do I want to give money to the poor? Then I don't help them be the best they could be. Mm-hmm. So it was just, it really was a problem. And there was no money, and paying bills was like, a gut churner. And there never was enough.
And I think a lot of us can relate to that in our lives. So what is your idea of source?
Well, I have to say at that time, my idea of source was the guy in this, the heavens who was testing you. And, when I prayed, I never knelt to pray. I always prayed with my back against the wall, because I was not going to turn my back on that guy. And that's true. And through studying metaphysical principles, these principles, I believe that source is big enough to be whatever we want to start with. And sometimes my most wonderful idea of source is this wonderful big woman in a big rocking chair that holds me in the Snuggie, and she tells me how good I am and that everything's going to be okay. But my main idea of source is that source is a principle of good, and it's a principle of eternal life. It's a principle of eternal expression. And I believe what Emma Curtis Hopkins says, that God and good are synonymous.
Yeah, I love that. And how is now your knowing of source, how does that play into your experience of abundance today?
Well, it's, for one thing, there's not a limited pile. And every single one of us who step out and believe in more and use these principles increase the pile for everybody. That's to start with. And the other thing is that, Don and I look at it is really easy to create abundance. It's easy to create material things. It's one of the easiest things to do there is, or to create money. It's just energy. And so it's just fun. And it's like when I pay my bills now, it's fun to pay bills. It's fun to pay bills because paying bills is just being at one side of the game. And it's all just a game, and it's just fun.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Wendy. And I know Don and Wendy, they truly experience a wonderfully prosperous life, and I love to. And when I say prosperous, not just financially, in all ways, but they truly do experience a financially prosperous life, and I love to hear their stories. I have to share with you a couple of little jokes. A thief broke into my house last night. He was searching for money, so I woke up and started searching with him. I have enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life if I die by next Tuesday. You know, it's interesting when we talk about money in church, because there's this tendency to get like, oh my gosh, we're talking about money. She's going to be asking us to give, and it's going to be this pressure thing. And as you know, in Unity, there is not a pressure thing. I'm going to be teaching principle. A couple weeks ago, Melissa shared with us the state of Unity of Springfield financially, and unfortunately it isn't a very good picture at this point. And so I went home that day and I just sat in that question of, how can we have a ministry as life-changing as this, with this message? How can we have this type of message that truly can change the dynamics of the world and not have a thriving ministry? And so when I just sat with that question, and the answer that came to me, well, if the ministry isn't thriving, that means that the majority of our congregants are not thriving financially. And the very next thought that came to me was, that's my job. As the spiritual leader, I am here to teach and to help every one of us anchor into spiritual principles and create a more affluent and flowing life in every area of our life. But in particular, for these next weeks, we're going to be talking about principles and how we can apply them to having a better experience of financial flow. Anybody in for a better experience of financial flow in our lives? Yeah. I mean, there's very few of us who have more than enough for the rest of our lives in retirement or whatever, in the physical realm. And the majority of people, sincerely, in the world struggle financially in one way or another. So we have the opportunity to heal our issues with money. I love that you shared the issue that you had early on, because we all have issues with money and the idea of money. And to begin, as we heal that, we're going to begin to understand the spiritual principles that underlie, and again, you said the energy of money. And you know, there's nothing else in life that creates more superstition, more pain, more fear, more misconception than their relationship with money. And so it's time for us to take it on. It's time for us to move past these limiting ideas and beliefs, these fears, the pain. It's time for us to move on and to move upward in our experience of financial flow in our lives. Are you guys with me? Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Reverend Eric Butterworth shares that a study that was done from the University of Michigan, where they interviewed thousands of people, and they came up with the top level beliefs about experiences around money. What do people worry about most? Money. What makes people happiest? Money. What makes people unhappiest? Money. So, you know, there's this enigma that surrounds money. And we give a ginormous amount of power to money, don't we? I mean, in our culture, oh my gosh, we give it the power to dictate our goals. We give it the power to dictate our purposes. We give it the power to dictate whether we're happy or not. We give it the power to diminish our self-worth. How many of us in this room have ever felt less than because we didn't have money? Or you don't have to raise your hands, but I would say that most of us have felt that. And you know, we blame money for everything. Money is a great thing to blame things on. We blame money for our setbacks, for our breakdowns, for our divorces, for betrayals. We blame money for compromising our own integrity. And we blame money for our moods. And I'm going to tell you that the idea of money has stolen so many moments from our lives that could have really been moments of being present and being in the joy of the journey, but the idea of money or the lack thereof, and not just the lack thereof, but know also that when people have a lot of money, that there's worries that come with that as well. So Joe Lewis said, "I don't like money, but it quiets my nerves." And someone else said, "Money talks." It had a conversation with me one time and it said, "Bye-bye." So money is a medium for exchange, and money is actually neutral. Obviously, the value that we give to it is, the value of money is what we give to it. And again, what we have to recognize and realize is that we give it way much more value than its face value. We give it value from our beingness, again, that can really hurt us. And so we want to become aware of this relationship with money. And I also was thinking about, is it really about having millions of dollars? I came across this a couple weeks ago, and I just cracked up, and I think most of us will relate to this. I don't want to be a millionaire. I just want to have enough money to be able to stare off in the distance while pumping my gas. I lived for so many years watching that until it got to $5. And I will never forget when my parents came to visit, they would fill my tank up. And it was just like, it was Christmas to me that my tank was actually full. And to actually be at this place where, oh, hey, I stare off in the distance now. This is pretty great. But this is the experience, sincerely, that most people have. And we want to start changing this so that this is not the experience that all of us have to have. Okay, so 2 books in particular that I'm using this week. One is Prosperity by our co-founder Charles Fillmore, and the other is Spiritual Economics by the late Reverend Eric Butterworth. Spiritual Economics is my favorite book on helping us to have a greater experience. My book, and I meant to bring it in here, it is highlighted clear through. He is an incredible teacher. If there's any one book I would say to pick up and read, it's Spiritual Economics. And I think, but I'm not positive, you might even be able to get a PDF download on the internet. So go take a look at that to see if you can. Okay, so Eric Butterworth said the word wealth originally meant well-being. And the word prosperity comes from the Latin root, which literally translates according to hope, or to go forward hopefully. So he says, thus it is not so much a condition in life as it is an attitude toward life. And I love this. In the broadest sense, prosperity is spiritual well-being. In the broadest sense, that's what prosperity is. It has nothing to do with money or the amount of money. It has to do with spiritual well-being. And we've got to get this, because until we have the spiritual well-being within ourselves, we're not going to have a great experience of money. You may attract a lot of money, but you're not going to have a good experience of it. If spiritual well-being is that we seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto us. But we always go here first, God, the source. And so in particular, let me first say this. Eric Butterworth says, to get the most from this study, you will want to declare your independence from the belief that your personal welfare is completely tied to the economic fluctuations of the world out there. And you will also want to establish yourself in the unassailable conviction that the free flow of substance can only be dammed up from within, and that no one can keep your good from you. This is a huge step, because we want to blame all kinds of things outside of us on why we're not prospering financially in our lives. And there's nobody that can truly keep our good from us, ever. It's an inside job for us all the time. So what we're going to talk about today has a lot to do, the first part is about substance. In Unity, you hear the term substance a lot, and we refer to God as substance. So Charles tells us that God's substance may be conceived of as God energy. It's energy in its purest form. This is the substance of God. Emily Cady from Lessons in Truth says, God is not a being with qualities or attributes, but God is the good itself coming into expression as life, love, power, and wisdom. And, really, Eric Butterworth, he kind of boils it down to that God is not a dispenser of divine substance, but God is the allness of ever-present substance in which we live and move and have our being. So God isn't giving us the substance. God is the very substance that we live and move and have our being in. And he said, this is the subtle but vitally important key on which the entire structure of spiritual economics rests. He wants us to get this idea of substance and to really let ourselves sit in it and imagine it and be one with it and recognize that there is no giver of something. God is the givingness all the time. We have to become the receivers. We have to become the ones to not only be the receivers of it, but to send, as the receivers, send out that energy. Substance cannot be seen, touched, tasted, or smelled, yet it is more substantial than matter, for it is the only the only substantiality in the universe. So, the first thing, again, it's like he says, get it into your consciousness that it's like a fish in water, that we literally, my friends, we live and move and have our being in this divine substance every single moment of every single day, eternally. And substance lives and moves and has its being in us. And so what he says is to claim your entitlement to that. And so I'm going to invite us to affirm this together. I am a child of the universe, richly endowed with the fullness of all good. You are that at this very moment. At this moment. And think about that. You're a child of the universe. It's not about the world giving you something or owing you anything. You're a child of the universe. And you have everything within you that you need to create a more affluent experience of life. And then we're going to do one more, and if you'll say this with me, God is my instant, constant, and abundant source of supply. And amen to that. And we're going to do these one more time at the end, so you'll get these. Okay, so substance. Just open yourself up and really start understanding substance and knowing that it is pure energy and it becomes form through our consciousness. And we're going to talk more about consciousness next week. Now, another thing, and I think this is so important for us, that Eric Butterworth talks about in his book, is this idea of onlyness. And the way that he shares that is through a story in the Bible in Kings 4:1-7. And this is a story of the widow who went to the prophet Elisha. And she's so scared because her husband died and left her with all these debts. And she goes to him and she's like, these creditors are coming. And according to Talmudic law at that time, her sons were what she would have to give in order to pay the debt. And obviously she didn't want to lose her sons. And so Elisha says to her, "What have you in the house?" And she says, "I only have one pot of oil." And so what Eric is saying is that when he asked her what she had in her house, he was asking her, what is in your consciousness? What is it that you're thinking about? What is it that you're identifying with? And her reply was essentially that despite the one pot of oil that she did have in her house, she was centered in the awareness of poverty. She was possessed by fear and thus had cut herself off from the divine flow. And I love this. She had a pot of oil, but to her it was only one pot of oil. Here's the thing, is that pot of oil was evidence of substance, but in her mind, it was evidence of lack. And this is a really important fork in the road for us, hugely important fork in the road for us, because she was plagued by the very common problem that most of us have of onlyness. And so, when we stop here and ask questions like, how much money do you make in your job? What is your net worth? And in most cases, you would say, I only earn, I only have. And the reason why we say the only is because we're centered in what we do not have. And with a subconscious fear that we don't have enough. Huge wake-up call. Huge wake-up call. I got to share with you that somebody that I know very well for years and years and years was doing great financially, had money in their 401k, and they were just doing great. It was interesting to me because I constantly heard this person saying, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I'm broke. I can't afford it. And it always kind of shocked me because I had like no money in anywhere, and that I would keep hearing this person who had money saying this. And today, this person has almost nothing. And so it's like really becoming aware. Even though this was there, it was like I have to keep it because it's the only thing that I can do is keep it. And instead of keeping it and saying, wow, I'm so blessed, I'm so abundant, it was, I'm broke, I can't afford it, I can't do it. So it's those subtle things that we have to get a hold of. It said that Jesus went forth without purse or scrip, and he didn't have anything in terms of assets, but what he did have is he had faith, and he had the awareness of the whole of God's substance everywhere that he went. And it's not that we recommend that by any means. I think that it's important to take care of things on a very practical basis. The idea here is that many of us don't even have that today. And so the place to start is with our faith and with understanding, again, where our consciousness is. And I love because he says that we need to walk in and work from the same level of consciousness as that expressed by Jesus, the same feeling of affluence and the same attunement to the creative flow. And so whatever it is that you have in your house, don't let it be an only. Don't let it be, there's not enough. Don't let it be that. And he says, goes on to say, let your job, your possessions, your resources be the symbol of the presence of limitless substance. I'm going to say that again. Let all that you have, whatever those dollars are in your wallet or that change that you have laying there, or the money in your checking account, shift that consciousness to focusing on the presence of limitless substance, because we know that what we focus on expands. And I'm going to say, how's it been working for you the other way? If we keep doing what we've always done, we're going to get what we've always gotten. And so this is a wonderful, powerful, subtle change that we can make. So your homework for this week is twofold, maybe threefold. Actually, I am going to ask you to do three things. One of them is to start becoming aware of those ideas that you might have about money that are limiting. Money's evil, only crooks make a lot of money, money has caused harm in my family dynamic, there's never going to be enough, whatever it is. And write them down as you think of them. And I would love it if you would share some of those with me. You can contact me via our website. I would appreciate if you would share some of those with me. The second thing that I want to encourage you to do is to take some time just to meditate on substance. Just to meditate on it. I mean, it's we can only, through the words of Charles and Eric and, express it to a degree, because there's no words that really define substance. It's moving into our own experience of this limitless substance in which we live and move and have our being. And for me, in that part of my meditation is knowing that there's this huge, vast field of infinite possibilities and potentialities. And it's for me to move into that field and to start claiming my good. And then the third thing is to really become aware of your words and your thoughts that say anything that has to do with onlyness. And when you find yourself, don't ever beat yourself up. When you find yourself just, oh wait, no, that is an expression of unlimited substance, of unlimited source, okay? So write down your ideas about, your thoughts about money, meditate on substance, and become aware of onlyness, because shifting that is going to shift so much in your life experience. So I want to close today with us once again sharing our affirmations. And so together, I am a child of the universe, richly endowed with the fullness of all good. Together, God is my instant, constant, and abundant source of supply. And so what I'm going to say here is that this is going to take effort, but it's worth the effort. It's worth the effort to change that experience that we have with money in our lives. And what I know absolutely is that as we become more abundant financially, individually, as our lives begin to thrive, the ministry is going to become more financially stable, and this ministry is going to begin thriving, and we're going to be able to do the things that we want to do together. We're going to be able to create the programs that we want to create and do the things out in the community that we want to do. And the reality, my friends, is money is our means of barter in this world, in this life. And so let's have a great relationship with money, and let's start moving in to a financially full and thriving life together, okay? Okay, and so it is. Amen and namaste. Namaste.